So the word you see on the screen is Latin. Anybody take Latin in school? So Paul should know how to pronounce it perfectly. Maybe he needs glasses to see it. I'm not sure. I'll say Translatio Imperii. Does that sound good to everybody? Anybody not like that pronunciation? All right. Okay. Anybody else took Latin in school? I see Lawrence shaking his head. Did I pronounce it right? All right. All right. Well,
Translatio Imperii.
wait, that sounds perfect. Wow. All right. It means transfer of power. That's what it means. Transfer of power. I've got to get my little clicker here. So, it means transfer of power. Okay, King David, first major king of Israel. Israel was divided, they were not actually united. He united the 12 tribes of Israel into one nation. And shortly after he united the nation together into one unified body, God delivered this strange prophecy to King David. He said, moreover, I will appoint a place for my people Israel, and I'll plant them that they may dwell in a place of their own and move no more. Now I want to point out again, this is after they're already settled in a unified Israel. They're not at war with any nation. And then suddenly God says, I'm going to appoint a place for my people Israel. Now in America here, we talk about, in our history, we talk about George Washington. We talk about Thomas Jefferson and John Adams and Samuel Adams. And then we talk about Bunker Hill and other things. Valley Forge, we hear about those things. And we talk about all the issues that helped bring about our war for independence. But there's something else going on here. There's something else going on beneath the surface, I believe, anyway, and you may see it differently. I'm just telling you the way I see it. Something else is going on here. And what we're witnessing here is a transfer of power. A transfer of power from the old Jerusalem, and the power actually began even before that, which I'll bring up and talk about here in a minute, to America. The transfer of power from Jerusalem to America. It was more than just 56 angry white guys demonstrating their anger at King George and the British government. It was more than that. Unfortunately, even many conservative preachers throughout the country and conservative speaking heads, when they talk about America, they kind of limit it to, again, George Washington and Jefferson, Adams and Bunker Hill and Valley Forge and all those things, and the angry colonists and the rising up against King George and securing their independence when Washington cornered Cornwallis at Yorktown, ended the war for independence. There's something more going on here. There's something more going on. Now, in my library, and I could have brought it over here, but I didn't. In the past, I've sometimes would bring a book over, but then I forget to carry it back. And one time I lost a very important book. I did eventually find it, but it wasn't where I thought it was. But I have a book in my library published in 1995 by a Swedish author. The book is titled Manifest Destiny. And it talks about America. And in his book, he talks about this concept. Translatio Imperii, pronounced better by Lawrence. It's a Latin word, transfer of power. Here's what he says. The word originates back into the Middle Ages. He said, it's a concept for describing history as a linear succession of transfers of an imperium that invests supreme power in a singular ruler and emperor. Now, all that sounds kind of confusing, I know. But this is how he described it. He said, it's the transfer of this power in a single supreme imperium power. Here's what else he says. He says, civilization was always carried forward by a single dominant power or people, and that historical succession was a matter of westward movement. He said this civilization, this westward movement was dominant in a single power or a single people, and it moved westward. Now, civilization does not, in spite of what we may hear from people, civilization is not just existing, floating around in the air, and ready to attach itself to the first person who grabs it. And if they grab civilization first, they're the lucky ones. Civilization is not just an ambiguous item floating in the air that can someone just grab and take onto themselves. Civilization is in your DNA. It's in your very makeup as a person. The dominant power or dominant people. And this DNA goes way back, this dominant power, this movement of civilization. I said the transfer of power earlier from Jerusalem to America, but this transfer of power existed in the very DNA of Adam himself when God put him in the garden. And, we're not going to go into it now, but most of you are probably aware that we believe that Adam was a white man, that all races did not come from Adam, like the churches tell us, that the other races were created as individual race, blacks or yellow case, they were invented that way, not invented, created that way. And Adam was the first man, a civilized man, the first man that could till the soil, so to speak. The word till in the Hebrew, if I recall right, means to supervise. He was a supervisor, where the other people were not supervisors. He was a supervisor. He had the DNA of a civilization. And people wonder who invented the wheel. I'll tell you who invented the wheel. It was Adam. Adam invented the wheel. The very first time he had to move something, he put up on a log, he recognized. Now, somebody told me one time, well, how do we know it was Adam? Maybe it was Eve. And I suppose it's possible that Eve hollered out to Adam and said, Adam, if you put that on that log, you'd roll it quicker. So maybe Eve was the one. It's possible. She might have told Adam, hey, put it on that log. It'll roll easier. But it was in our DNA. Your people, your DNA are the inventors of civilization. It is you. And this transfer of power has been transferring from Adam all through the scriptures and takes a consummation right here into the day and age in which we live now. The dominant power. What is the dominant power? Who is the dominant power? I believe it's white people. White people represent or are this dominant power that civilization has been a part of, that have moved continually through the ages. Now, I'm aware that some people could argue that all races have a civilization. And I guess maybe in some ways that would be true. All races have, if a very broad, liberal term, have a civilization. Yet our civilization was more than just a civilization. We had a civilization that then became not just civilized ourselves, we created a civilization that then blessed other people. It not only was a blessing to us, but he began to bless other people. And didn't God tell Abraham when he called him, he said, you're going to be a blessing to all people? In other words, your civilization, your actions, your law and order, the things that characterize you will be a blessing to everybody. Everybody's going to benefit from what you are. And everybody's benefited from our civilization. Now, you can argue that blacks have a civilization, what they do, but has anybody benefited from the civilization of the Zulus? Has anybody benefited from the civilization of the Polynesians? Has anybody benefited even from the civilization of the Chinese in the Orient? I don't think so, especially with the coronavirus. People have a little concern about that. But has anybody benefited from them? No, they haven't benefited. That's what, but they have benefited. All the world has benefited, right or wrong, justly or unjustly. The point is they have benefited from our civilization. That's why missionaries, they go over to Africa and they see some little Indian, black tribe and who's urinating in the water that they're drinking. They say, well, you can't do that. We're going to dig you a well. And what's a well? And so millions of dollars goes to dig wells in Africa. Could they benefit from us? Now, Oswald Spengler, who was a noted, well-known German philosopher and historian, he wrote in a book called Man and Techniques. He says, coal as an example. Coal was everywhere to be found. Sometimes we're told that the reason our civilization, or America, is blossomed because we have all these natural resources. And so in a sense, he's referring to this. He said coal was found everywhere. There's coal everywhere. But it took the white engineers, it took them to develop a method of getting the coal out of the ground and make it useful. They have coal in Africa. They have coal everywhere. But it was the white engineers that was able to get it out of the ground. Then he says, and now this is interesting because he wrote this in 1932. In 1932, this man saw what was happening. In 1932, who would have argued that the white people were the dominant force in the entire world? Who in 1932 would even have suspected that white people's civilization was in danger? Nobody. But there's a few people who had some eyesight into the future. Here's what he wrote in 1932. He said, instead of keeping strictly to itself the technical knowledge that constituted our greatest asset, and that our greatest asset wasn't coal, our greatest asset was the knowledge we had, our DNA, white people complacently offered it to all the world. We took our techniques, our ability, and gave it to the world. We took our civilization, the knowledge, we lifted us up, and we foolishly gave it away. In some ways, you could say that in America, a good example, when your forefathers who built this country, and the settlers who traveled west, and the hardships, we can't even imagine the hardship they had to endure. We try to look at pictures, we try to understand, we read things. We try to understand, but we can't understand. We can't even try. Don't think you can understand. You can't. And the hardship they went through to build and give us this country, and we're just giving it away. We're just giving it away. It's what is called a Faustian culture. A Faustian culture named after Johann Faust. Legend says that he has such an unquenchable quest for knowledge. He just had to have all the knowledge available that he finally was willing and sold his soul to the devil in exchange for unlimited knowledge. That's what we've done in our country here. We have taken our quest to be good humanitarians. We've taken our quest to be good Christians. We gave away the knowledge of our civilization to the Untermenschens. It's the old German word, means under people. We've taken our knowledge because of our humanitarian and desire to be a good Christians, just like Faust wanted all the knowledge in the world. He sold his soul. We, in our quest to be good Christians, good humanitarians, we give away everything that our forefathers gave to us. And we gave it away, not we ourselves maybe, but we certainly stood witness as it happened, as large international corporations gave away our civilization for profits, for the bottom line, for the dollar. Making a difference, that's why international corporations don't have any allegiance to America. Their allegiance is to the corporate stockholders, to how much money they can make. And so they gave away the country, gave away your civilization for profits. Now we're looking at this word in Translatio Imperii, transfer of power. In 1784, Reverend Thomas Brockway galvanized the same point. He said, empire, leaning, and religion have in the past ages been traveling from east to west. And this continent is their last western state. Here, then, is God creating or erecting a stage on which to exhibit the great things of his kingdom. He said this civilization moving from east to the west, and suddenly here, America, the end of the earth, you can't go any further west. The end of the earth, here, the appointed place. He said God is going to exhibit the great things of his kingdom. It is here in this North American continent that God regathered his people. We look at this nation, and conservative Christians generally conclude that we became rich and we became powerful and we became blessed by God because of the people who built the country were Christians. That's what they tell us. They said the reason we became a great country, and you can turn on any conservative newscaster or writer, author, and they all basically say the same thing. We're becoming a great country because we're a Christian people, and God blessed us. And I don't want to discount that notion. I don't want to totally discount that. But our blessings are not because of what we did. Our blessing because of who we were. When a person gives an inheritance, when he gets old, he dies, and he's like a multi-millionaire, and he gives an inheritance to his children, it's not because of what the children have done. It's because who the children are. And we have this inheritance from God, not because we've done anything, but because who we are. We are the inheritors of the covenant that God gave to Abraham and Sarah and to all their generations. We're the inheritors. Some people say, well, do you think you're righteous or you think you're bad? It's not nothing to do with being righteous. It's just that I'm an inheritor. I inherited a blessing. Not because I'm righteous. America is blessed, not because America is righteous. America's never been righteous. But America has always been blessed. He gave his possession. He gave this possession to his anointed people. His people. Now, John Winthrop was an early American settler, colonist, governor of Massachusetts Bay County, I believe. And he came over to America in 1630. And he said, speaking to those who were on the ship, and there was many, many, many. I think the caravan had like 7 ships in that caravan. Well, anyway, they came over. Here's what he said. He said, we shall find that the God of Israel is among us. When 10 of us shall be able to resist 1,000 of our enemies, when he shall make us a praise and a glory, then men shall say of succeeding plantations, the Lord make it like that of New England. For we must consider that we shall be a city upon a hill in the eyes of all people that are upon us. He said this blessing that is coming is coming. He announced the blessing before it even came. That God is going to bless his people. And then John Rolfe, who was an early settler of Jamestown, he said in a statement, he made a comment. He said, referring to the settlers, he said they were a peculiar people, marked and chosen by the finger of God. He said the settlers who were coming here were marked and chosen by the finger of God. In this land was marked and chosen by the finger of God. And then there's Nathaniel Morton. Nathaniel Morton was the nephew of William Bradford, the governor of Plymouth County. Nathaniel Morton was a secretary of Plymouth County from 1645 until his death in 1685. And he was a secretary then. He kept very careful records. And he wrote the very first history book of America, published in 1669, called the New England Memorial. It was the first one that actually gave the account and the names of all the signers of the Mayflower Compact. He gave the first description of the Thanksgiving event. Anyway, here's what he said. He said, referring to the reason he wrote this New England Memorial, he said, we may not hide from our children, showing to the generations to come the praises of the Lord, that especially the seed of Abraham, his servant, and the children of Jacob, his chosen, may remember his marvelous works, but also that he hath guided his people by his strength to this holy habitation. I don't think we understand, even as much as we try, I don't think we can really appreciate what we have here in this country. I know Jason was talking to a lawyer friend of his a few years ago who did a lot of traveling over in the, I believe in the Orient, in the East, in the Philippines. He came back and he told Jason, he said, people in this country do not realize how well they have it here. They don't understand. And the Bible refers to it, I'm going to quote this in a minute, the Bible refers to this land, this Zion, as the joy of the whole earth. They're not flooding to get into Pakistan. They're not crowding to get into Cambodia or Mexico or Colombia or Brazil. Where is the world trying to get to? The world is trying to get here. Why? Because this land is the joy of the whole earth. And he said, Nathaniel Morton said that God guided his people to his holy habitation. Is America God's holy habitation? We need to consider that. Are we living in what is referred to as a mountain of his inheritance? This land chosen by God, appointed by God way back in the first recording we have is 2 Samuel 7:14 when he gave this announcement to King David. Now, our forefathers understood that America was a unique nation. Not because of anything we did, but because of God's providence. In George Washington's second inaugural address, he clearly pointed this out by saying that our forefathers were led, quote, as Israel of old from their native land and planted them in a country flowing with all the necessaries and comfort of life. They brought them to this land. The same theme was given by Thomas Jefferson, who wanted to, Great Seal, he suggested that the Great Seal of the United States would be an image of Israel crossing the Red Sea and being delivered from Egypt. And then in the first inaugural address, Thomas Jefferson wrote, or said, that we were a rising nation spread over a wide and fruitful land. According to Jefferson, America was a nation, here, advancing rapidly to destinies beyond the reach of mortal eye. He saw this vision for America, and the American people saw that, they understood this. This was something special, unique. It was a general theme that, in opinion of America, we could escape the crushing darkness of the past and become truly free. In their thinking, the nation of Europe were a slave to the history. Europe was a slave to its history. They're slave to other feuds, religious conflicts, and wars. And Europe had been in conflict and wars for years. And our founding fathers, they built this country, and they said, this is something new. We're not going to bring the bickerings of Europe to this country. America is unique. John O'Sullivan, a newspaper columnist, and quite a popular one in that, in 1845, he created the phrase manifest destiny, that we are now told is so horrible. He created the phrase manifest destiny. He said America would become, he said, quote, America would become the noblest temple ever dedicated to the worship of the Most High. God's inheritance, the mountain of his inheritance, his holy habitation, the land chosen by the very finger of God. John O'Sullivan now says it will become the greatest temple ever dedicated to the worship of the Most High. He said it was the right of our manifest destiny to overspread and to possess the whole continent which providence has given us. A year earlier, when writing about the annexation of Texas, he said, cast a glance over the map of North America. They will see that Texas was a huge fragment of the continent that had been artificially broken off. He said that it is obvious that this mass of land was destined to become belonged to the race was sent there for providential purposes. America wasn't just an accident. It was a gift. It was a gift to who? The children of God. It was a gift to the children of Abraham and Sarah. It was a gift to his people Israel. It was a gift to us. Sure, we were a Christian people, and sure, we acknowledged Christ. But we also were, it was a gift to us. The church, Christianity in itself was a gift to his people. And inspired by that theme of a manifest destiny, a painter, John Gast, in 1872, painted this picture. It's called America's Progress. And it shows here the Brooklyn Bridge in the Far East being built, under construction. It shows farmers plowing their fields. It shows stagecoaches, telegraph lines, churches, railroad engineers, as this angel taking civilization westward. And in the west, what do you see? You see the fleeing Indians, and you see darkness in the west, as the angel of light brings civilization. This transfer of power. He called it and named it America's Progress, but he could just as well have named this painting Translatio Imperii, the transfer of power, because it's a picture of the dominant power moving civilization across America. It is important that it is important to understand that it is not the government which was showered with these wonderful blessings. It wasn't the government that was given the blessings by God. It was the people. It was the people. The government is meaningless. It's the people. Blessings were given to the people, not to the government. And this is where we get the idea of American exceptionalism. We hear conservatives talk about that, American exceptionalism. And America understood at that time that we were a blessed people, we were a chosen people, we were an anointed land, we were an anointed people. But today, liberals have taken that, and conservatives bought into the idea that our exceptionalism is that we are responsible to take our knowledge to the rest of the world. That's what you hear about. You hear that all the time. In fact, one person said, American exceptionalism is the proposition that the United States is different from other countries in that it was a Pacific world mission to spread liberty and democracy. That isn't what our founding fathers understood. Their idea of American exceptionalism was that we were exceptional in the nation. God blessed us more than any other people. Now they take that and twist it around, saying we have a responsibility to take our civilizations, our blessings, just give it away to the rest of the world. And of course, this caused a lot of international wars and conflict as we try to be the police state of the world. But our forefathers understood that we were exceptional because we were an anointed nation, anointed by God. It was his holy habitation. It was his mountain of his inheritance. It was where the greatest temple ever built for the worship of the Almighty. America was anointed by God. America was a holy habitation. When you walk out of here, you'll be walking on ground that was anointed by God. The mountains and the hills and the valleys of America are anointed by God. Every lake, every river, every stream, every bubbling creek in this land, in America, is anointed by God. Even the dust you scrape off your shoes is soil of America that you brought into your house and stuck to your shoes. But even that dirt that you sweep out of your house and you kick off your shoes is America, and has been anointed by God. Every tree and every brush and bush and every blade of grass is anointed by God. Every living thing in this land is anointed by God. Even the wind which sweeps across the prairies is anointed by God. This is God's anointed land, his appointed place, his holy habitation, blessed by the very finger of God. From the rocky shorelines of the Atlantic to the beaches of California, from the Gulf Coast water lashed upon the coast of Mississippi to the chilly winds of northern Minnesota, this land is God's holy habitation. This is the appointed place. The promise given to King David. A place to regather the sons and daughters of Abraham. Well is said, great is the Lord, and greatly to be praised, in the city of our God, in the mountain of his holiness. Beautiful for situation, the joy of the whole earth is Mount Zion, on the sides of the north, the city of the great King. Somebody put that song, words to music. I'm going to do my best to sing it for you. Great is the Lord, and greatly to be praised, in the city of our God, in the mountain of his holiness. Beautiful for situation, the joy of the whole earth is Mount Zion on the sides of the north, the city of the great King. Remember when Satan broke away in Isaiah 14, when Satan started, he started this rebellion? Remember that? What did he say there? He says, how art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which is weakened the nations? For thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heavens, exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. I will set above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. America is truly the land on the sides of the north. What other nation, what other people can make that claim? What other nation been blessed the way our country has been blessed? For no reason we can't explain. Oh, sure, because we're a Christian people, but it goes beyond that. Satan seeks to sit on the sides of the north. America is the target of his anger. America is the target of his rebellion. He's not seeking to sit on the congregation or to dominate Thailand. He's not seeking to dominate Cambodia. He doesn't seek to dominate Colombia or Venezuela or Zimbabwe or Egypt or Israel or Pakistan. What nation in all the world does Satan seek to dominate? It's here in America. This land. The land that God chose for his own inheritance. The congregation that sits on the sides of the north. Now, when God called Abraham, I'm going to try to close very quickly. When God called Abraham, we read in Hebrews 11, 8 through 10. It said, by faith, Abraham, when he was called to go out into a place which he should after receive for an inheritance, obeyed, and he went out, not knowing whither he went. By faith he sojourned in the land of promise, as in a strange country, dwelling in tabernacles with Isaac and Jacob. Tabernacles means tents. The heirs with him of the same promise. For he looked for a city which hath foundations, whose builder and maker is God. Now, it's interesting here. Do we really think for a minute that Abraham was just kind of walking around and saying, well, I'm trying to find the city of God. Come on, Isaac, let's look over this next hill. Maybe it's there. And then he walked, well, that's not there. Do we really think that Abraham's kind of walked around looking for some city? The word looked in Greek, that word right there. I'll let you try to figure out how to pronounce it. I'm not even going to try. But that's a Greek word for looked. When it says that he looked for a city whose built foundation and builder and maker is God. The word look is that word right there. It's the only time it appears in the Bible. It's the only time it appears in the Bible. The word means to wait in fulfillment. It doesn't mean to look like you're looking for something. It means to tarry or to wait, to have patience, to expect that God is going to fulfill. He just served God knowing that God was going to fulfill his blessing. That's what it means. It didn't mean he was looking for something. He just moved about in faith that God was going to bless him. And there was going to be this city whose ruler and maker is God. Now let's look here a second. Abraham looked for a city whose ruler and maker is God. We live in a land that was chosen by the finger of God. We live in a land that was God's holy habitation, the mountain of his inheritance, where the greatest temple ever built for the Lord is going to be built right here, he says, I don't mean necessarily a building like the Mormons think of in Independence, Missouri. I don't think that's a suburb of Kansas City. I don't think that's kind of, but America itself is the temple. And doesn't he tell us that we are the temple of God? And doesn't tell Israel that they are the temple of God here in America? Now let's look at Revelations. I, John, saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. Here John has seen a vision. And he carried me away in the spirit to a great high mountain, and showed me that great city. I suspect this is the city that Abraham was looking for. This is the city that John Winthrop said is set on a high hill. The city on a hill. He showed me a great city, the holy Jerusalem, descending out of heaven from God, having the glory of God, and her light was like that upon a stone most precious, even like a jasper stone, clear as crystal. Is this holy city that John saw, is this the same city that Abraham will anticipation for? Is it the same? I suspect it is. Would Abraham be looking for anything but the greatest city that God can provide? Of course not. This is it. This is the city. Could America, and I'm just throwing this out here, tell you how I feel. Could America, God's holy habitation, the mountain of God's inheritance, the temple of the Most High, the land chosen by the finger of God, the land in the sides of the north, the joy of the whole earth, could America be that city? Could America be that appointed place? Could America be the city that Catherine Lee Bates saw when she stood at the top of Pikes Peak and she wrote that song, America the Beautiful? Is that the same thing she was seeing? Was she seeing the same thing that Abraham saw? Was she seeing the same thing that John saw? Oh, beautiful for patriots' dreams, who looked beyond the years. 9 alabaster cities gleam, undimmed by human tears. America, America, God shed his grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. Does she see America as God's holy habitation? The mountain of God's inheritance? The temple of the Most High? Does she also think America as God's anointed nation? America wasn't built by men. America was built by God. And it was given to the sons and daughters of Israel as our sacred and holy possession. We're going to sing this song here in a minute. My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride, from every mountain side let freedom ring. My native country, thee, land of the noble free, thy name I love. I love thy rocks and rills, thy woods and templed hills. My heart with rapture thrills, like that above. Let music swell the breeze and ring from all the trees, sweet freedom song. Let mortal tongues awake, let all that breathe partake, let rocks their silence break, the sound prolong. Our Father God, to thee, author of liberty, to thee we sing. Long may our land be bright with freedom's holy light. Protect us by thy might, great God our King. America is the land of our inheritance, given to us by the very finger of God, his holy habitation, the great city on a hill, the city on the sides of the north, the city that Abraham looked for, and the very city that John saw descending out of heavens. We live in a blessed land because we have been a blessed and anointed people. Let's pray. Our Father, we thank you for allowing us to be a part of this great, noble adventure. We thank you for allowing us to be here this hour, this very hour, to lift up a voice to our people, a voice of hope and deliverance. Help us to love this country. Help us to love our forefathers. And help us to love and cherish the possession and the anointing you've given us. We ask in your name. Amen.
Very good, Pastor Rob. If you'd like to get more information regarding church service as well as our publication, The Torch, you can write to us at Christian Revival Center, P.O. Box 602, Harrison, Arkansas 72601. That's Christian Revival Center, P.O. Box 602, Harrison, Arkansas 72601. Or you can email us at revival@southshore.com.